managed to stop talking just in time for the director to hit the button. So I had to acknowledge that so that I can fill the first 30 seconds so we don't have like EG or somebody drop an F bomb. Good thing he's not here. So,
Yeah, he's terrible about it. Totally.
Right. Was that you last time?
No, actually wasn't. Which is surprising because it usually is. I do want to take this first 30 seconds to say that there are people who have given us money on Patreon and have not used the links that I have absolutely sent them to join us on Discord. And you're missing out on lots and lots of gift wars.
Apparently over 100 memes yesterday, 100 gifts. So Cody counted.
So,
Let us enrich your life.
Especially when you're paying for it. It's like, I have sent you the links. If you have not received the links, send us a message. I will figure it out. But I don't want you to just have sent us money and then not having gotten anything for it.
Which, I'm cool with it either way. Money spends, but you might as well get your value's worth. So
yes, the gift wars. You must spectate or participate.
Right. We had a couple of people like dip a toe in, but it was just you and me at the end just slugging it out. So yeah.
Okay.
So anyways, Lord of the fucking Rings, man, since we're a minute and a half in, we should be safe now. So that's it. That's our one F-bomb for the show. You're welcome. I stole it.
We'll go rated R instead of PG-13.
Yeah. So the two fucking towers then?
Exactly.
Yeah.
Hey, sheesh, relax. If you do too much,
there we go. That's it.
There's also an algorithm for that now.
Excellent.
I should.
So anyway,
I just want to be rebellious, but that's not the right. I should.
Yeah, right.
You're kind of just rebelling against your own profit, really. Like the system might be bad, but you have to live.
I want my $2.
Yeah.
So.
Okay. I did the homework. I finished the book as the book 3, half of the book last night.
All right. So where does it end? Because then I can tell you if I made it all the way or not. So
okay. The Palantir is the last chapter. Yeah. So
okay.
Pippin looked at the Palantir
in that chapter, if nothing else. Okay. Then
Gandalf picked him up, and we're going to Gondor, and that's
oh no. Okay. So I did make it. I wasn't sure if I missed the transition or didn't remember. So because like the next scene is them dealing with the whole like he's agonizing over it and thinking about it, and like Gandalf's got his eyes half open or whatever, I think. So I've started book 4 at least. So I also did the homework like 100%.
That's in the chapter of the Palantir.
It's the same chapter. Okay.
Yeah. So
I'm like right there anyway.
It dropped and Pippin wants to know what it is. And then he goes and takes it from Gandalf while he's sleeping with his eyes open, and it's super creepy. And then he looks at it, and then Sauron looks at him and says some creepy things. And then they all realize of how dangerous and important it is. And they all split up to different tasks. And Pippin is going with Gandalf, and Aragorn and everyone else are going to Helm's Deep to return to Rohan.
I might have. Yeah, I've got an hour left apparently. So apparently that whole thing takes long. But it does segue into like my favorite Lord of the Rings meme right now. So, which I mentioned on a previous show, which is, bad news, everybody. Sauron knows everything that Pippin knows. Good news, everybody. Pippin doesn't know
nothing.
So I think it's just funnier to have Gandalf be a gangster for a minute because it's just like, Then he puts on his dark sunglasses and they ride off to Gondor. So, okay. So, but it starts off with the way the Fellowship ends, which is, the Battle of, what is it? Yeah, Boromir. So, the Battle of Boromir.
And then the tracking and the running and the tracking and more running. And then they get horses.
Which the tracking is the opening of Two Towers, the movie, right? So it's just that like it's like that first chapter gets shoved into Fellowship, which makes a bit of sense, right? It's a tough thing from a movie standpoint in the sense that so like you're adding content to a movie that you've already had to cut things out, but from an editing and like a holistic story perspective, the Fellowship breaks at that battle. They're literally split into 3 technically, 3 different groups, and you basically got the whole touching, Aragorn and Gimli's line from the movie anyways, and it's fairly well echoed from the books, so I can't remember it exactly, but it's like, oh, so that's it then, that's the end of the fellowship. And then Aragorn and Legolas are like, not as long as we stay true to each other, because friendship is magic and we got to go save those two hobbits before they get eaten. So
This may be a bit pedantic, but does it actually start with the death of Boromir? Or does it actually start with the Battle of Boromir? Because it just shows
it
starts
starts
with
out
his
with
death.
the battle.
Well,
Does it actually happen?
So it starts out. Okay. So you don't see the battle, obviously.
That's what I mean.
Right?
Yeah. Okay.
Yeah. And so, welcome to the Lord of the Rings, the books. There is precious little actual fighting.
Man, that makes me so happy. I know that seems so weird, but I like that. I like that touch. It's because it's what happened, rather than when.
And the beginning of book 3 really is like almost like a whodunit, more of a mystery than it is, and so like you get to see like Aragorn basically spends the first several chapters of the book being like, oh well, there was a mighty duel, and this guy was left-handed, and that guy was wearing a black mask, and Legolas is like, holy shit, I'm like 3,000 years old. How are you doing this? And then they go a little ways down the way, and someone has bested a giant. So in case you weren't getting the Princess Bride references here, but like Aragorn is like a ridiculous tracker, right? And then that leads into Gimli's joke later when they make it to Rohan, where they were like, Aragorn can track everybody through a bent blade, but some of us need to see evidence of shit, but Aragorn is like a supernatural tracker, right? And he's able to paint the scene for you. And they all talk about how the three of them were all split up as well, and they fought orcs, so they assumed Boromir also fought orcs, and they find his broken body and send him
poked up a lot with the orc arrows, and so he clearly fought orcs. There were a bunch of dead orcs.
That's Aragorn all conjecture unless you're Aragorn. So
he had being able to talk to Boromir for like a minute, and Boromir said things. I tried to take a ring and things. He felt bad about it. And he was trying to protect the hobbits and stuff, and then he died. So
right,
or a confirmation.
Right. And I mean, one thing that's good about it too is like you get a lot more like emphasis on the fact that like this stuff isn't happening necessarily because like Boromir's a bad guy. It's happening because he's been enchanted, and you get that again when you go to Isengard, right? Because Saruman starts doing the same thing, and it's very obvious like that it's happening to like all the Rohirrim are under Saruman's spell, but Gandalf and Aragorn and a few of the others, like the Fellowship, are like, yeah, this guy is talking nonsense. What are you guys talking about? And you can tell when the spell is broken and stuff like that. And so, so you get, if I remember right, you get a little bit from Boromir where it's like Aragorn acknowledges that, right? That it's like Boromir wasn't doing this because he's a bad guy. He was doing this because, the ring influenced him and he redeemed himself at the end, kind of thing, so.
All the fun stuff was in this book, and I'm a little bit worried that book 4 is going to be boring.
Well, it's slow. I'm saying that it's slow.
And this is the guy who doesn't like the battles telling you that it's slow.
I'm worried.
Yeah. I think you just got to get a little bit more into the world building and the history than, the action and that sort of thing. Like, surprise, it's fantasy, and that's a lot of the fun of it. So, but I mean, you deal with Shelob in this one too, right? And some other things. So it's not completely devoid of, or does that not happen until book 3?
That is the end.
Return of the King.
Yeah. Pretty sure that happens book 4, right? So book 4, okay. The second part of Two Towers.
They moved into
the first part of
yeah.
Right. Okay.
Yeah. For all the kind of things that don't really matter in changing things out of movie, that's one of them. I'm fine.
Right.
I'm fine.
Well, and again, like the only reason why it's worth even talking about, in my opinion, is like it's an interesting editing choice, right? Because you're shoving extra content into an already stuffed story one way or another. And does it line up better with the overall narrative and stuff? And so, like, when you're talking about like the split, though, when you're talking about like whether or not we focus on, you know, Gimli, Legolas, and Aragorn versus Frodo and Sam, like those are kind of parallel stories anyway. So to me, it doesn't matter as much when they switch back and forth, you know, as long as the time frame kind of matches up or whatever. But like taking the whole, I feel like taking Boromir's thing and shoving that into the first movie makes a lot of storytelling sense. It's just interesting from a movie editing perspective that you're like, yes, well, we didn't have room for Tom Bombadil because we chopped off the first 10% of the next story and shoved it into this movie. So
we didn't have time for Tom Bombadil, no matter what.
That makes Tom Bombadil sad.
Yeah, is that why his boots are yellow?
Walking in the woods, it's just, I mean, my favorite parts of the Lord of the Rings is not the happy singing in the woods. I'll say that.
What about the sad singing in the woods?
Better,
right?
Much better.
Okay.
Yeah, she just likes people to be broken. So
yeah, I don't like happy.
Right.
Gideon the Ninth is her favorite series.
Oh yeah, right.
One of
yeah. So we got damaged people, the everything, like everybody in that book is.
Yeah.
It's like, so once upon a time, somebody figured out necromancy and basically made everybody else have a bad day, and then it never stopped. Like that's the shorthand of what's happening in Gideon of the Ninth. We're mostly pretty much maybe Jod is having a good time, but other than that, everybody else is having a bad time. So. But even he doesn't seem all that happy about it.
No, he seems very remorseful.
That's a stretch, but anyway. Okay, so they shove Boromir down the river off a cliff because that's what you do with people. And then they pursue the hobbits, Merry and Pippin, because it's like, nobody deserves to be eaten by orcs, even Merry and Pippin. So.
Right. And so the orcs are under orders to take Merry and Pippin, or hobbits, any of the hobbits that they found, to Isengard. And the dispute.
The hobbits?
They're taking the
hobbits to
Isengard.
You're welcome.
The dispute between different groups of orcs and Uruk-hai is whether they're going to Sauron or Saruman, essentially, because they each want clout with their respective masters. I was a little disappointed that they didn't say meat's back on the menu, because that wasn't what the fight was about. Because I really liked that whole exchange, and it as an editing change, getting into the differences between Sauron and Saruman in that little moment might have been a bit too hard to parse. I would agree that probably making it about, we're hungry, I don't like you, I'm going to eat them whether you say it or not, type of thing, like condenses the whole fight very nicely and still sticks true to the feel of the whole dispute inside the orcs.
Right. Well, and it's just kind of funny too, because it's like, so like, I don't know. In the books, it's a lot murkier, but in the movies, it's Saruman has the Uruk-hai and Sauron has orcs. But really, Saruman had actually kind of just like copied that idea from Sauron in the books anyway, was the way that I understood it. And so like, it's probably not that big of a disparity in the books, but it is kind of funny to think these like little pipsqueak orcs that are barely above goblins are like picking a fight with these guys who are like 7 feet tall, and all of that stuff. 'Cause that's what you get in the movie out of it. But yeah, and you do get, like, it's funny because like the movie very much simplifies what happens, because it's like you almost get the same scene like 3 times, where it's just like, yes, no one gets to eat the hobbits and I'm in charge, and then they go off and like deal with some nonsense, and then they come back and that gives the hobbits time to talk and plan and realize that they're both alive and throw their leave of Lorien down and all of this other stuff. But but there's like multiple like breaks, and so like this chase takes place over the course of days, which you get a little bit of that in the movie, but that gets conveyed through like sunrises and stuff like that as you follow Gimli and Legolas and Aragorn
and
with
Gimli's
the whole
attempt to keep up running with an elf and Aragorn for
just
3 days and nights
keep
with
breathing.
no rest,
That's
no
the secret.
Very short on, very dangerous on a short distance.
I'm wasted on cross country. So,
that's one thing. I think that the movie did not do enough justice to showing that Pippin is clever, and the book did more of it, showing that Merry was injured or more out of it. He had gotten hit in the head or something, and Pippin was like, "What the hell can I do?" And so they do show that him dropping the leaf brooch, but I think
that's in the extended edition of the Lord of the Rings.
Is it only in the extended edition? I thought that was theatrical as well.
I don't know.
Regardless,
maybe
there's only one version, guys. I don't even know what you're talking about. So,
there's just more being able to be in his perspective of how does he manage this, like trying to get his hands untied and clear and like all things like that. They kind of show it in the fight, but there was more of it because the argument with the orcs and the Uruk-hai was where the hobbits going, because they know that there's something valuable or possibly in the ring. Pippin starts pretending to act like Gollum, and Merry picks up on it, and they start faking it at that one orc as to whether they have it or not, and they'll deal it with him if he gets him free, something, and distracts them enough that they're able to escape even further. But Pippin is clever, and that cleverness gets him into trouble, but it's not just a flaw.
Right. Yeah, he becomes so like in the books he's comic relief, but he becomes even more comic relief like in the movies, because they distill his character down to the shenanigans rather than any of the redeeming qualities that he kind of shows in the book and that sort of thing. So, but
yeah, I think so. It was in the Return of the King when they're talking about the Palantir and Pippin's still trying to be happy-go-lucky. Everything can be fine, right? And they have to drive home. No, bad guys think that you are the ring bearer, and now this is bad. But they had to make him stupid for that point to be driven home. And so they're basically trying to talk at the audience at that point and not to the character. It's unfortunate when they have to do that.
Yeah. Just a quibble. I think naive is a better word than stupid in this case because, again, cleverness, right? But at the same time, like he's definitely ignorant of some things that is common sense for everybody else, but mostly because they're practically from two different worlds, like he's not thinking like the enemy, which is another thing that's kind of fun about reading the books is that Gandalf is almost obsessed with what Saruman knows and what Sauron knows. And, so it's even better that Pippin doesn't know shit. But importantly, like it's just kind of interesting because like he tells you multiple times, especially during this book, that it's like we're going to go to Gondor, and it's important that Frodo and Sam do their thing because he couldn't possibly think that anybody would be trying to destroy the ring. It's literally impossible for Sauron to like think of that. The reason why he can see so far is because he's so good at predicting what everybody else is doing. Not to mention, of course, he's got spies in the Palantir and all of this other stuff that he can actually see with. But what he's really counting on is like he's not entirely surprised that Saruman's going to double cross him. He's a little concerned about that though, because whoever gets the ring gets all like the bulk of his power or whatever. But he's just as concerned as if somebody in Gondor, like Aragorn, takes the ring, because they'll be the next Dark Lord instead of him, and then he'll still get destroyed. And so that's what Sauron is like agonizing over, but you get that all from Gandalf. And Gandalf is basically there just like doing a Snoopy dance the entire time about like, I know what nobody else knows, and all this other nonsense because, like Gandalf leveled up and probably got a little bit to see beyond the veil and that sort of thing. And so like a lot of what Gandalf does and the moves that they make during the rest of the book and until the end, more or less, it's all a smokescreen. It's all distraction to keep Sauron occupied and looking at them. Which is kind of fun. So
which is interesting because it's almost unlike what they say about the ring, don't want to use the enemy's weapons against himself. They kind of do, because that's Sauron's whole thing. It's not just power and might, but also deception and playing people against each other and all that. Sure. Which is why I think Grima Wormtongue works so much better, when it's not strictly a magic spell, seems like in the book, it's just the king believes the lies he's being told.
It's both.
No. Yeah. So the spell is Saruman. Gandalf exorcises Saruman from him.
That happens in the book too. That wasn't.
Yes, that's what I'm saying. Like, yeah, so it's absolutely still magic involved with Theoden. You just don't get the like supernatural de-aging that you get in the movie. In the book, Theoden is very much still an old guy, but he's a very capable old guy. So like maybe he's in his 60 to 80 at like the extreme ends or something.
Yeah.
But they still make a comment while they're riding with him that he's old, but nobody talks about it because he's also the king and he'll fucking kill you. So there's your third one, I think. But in any case,
when they go to talk to Saruman, and it's the whole chapter of the voice of Saruman, Theoden says, I've heard this voice before and for too long, basically explicitly saying that all of the stuff that Grima Wormtongue has been doing, it is his own manipulation, but Saruman was also working on him that way.
Right. And it's why Gandalf's staff was such a big deal, right? Gandalf could have easily out-talked Grima Wormtongue and does a lot of that in the rap battle, right? So like they do have that moment, but Gandalf also uses his I mean the line from the movie, and I think it's in the book as well, is like, I'm going to draw Saruman from Theoden like poison from a wound, type of thing. And in the movie, you get the whole like pointing the staff at him, and Theoden pretends that he's possessed because he is, stuff like that. But yeah, so and there is a magical component. And it's even more obvious when they get to Isengard because like again, the host of people that are with them are all like, yeah, Saruman's like talking sense and stuff like that. And it's not until Gandalf breaks his staff, I think, that the spell is lifted. He does something, but
he just laughed at it. Like there's a couple of different times that Saruman was trying both on Theoden and then on Gandalf and like other people, but basically every time they just rebuffed him and said, "I'm not accepting this. You've lied to me. You're not mistrustful. Everything that you just said is wrong." That's all it took to break the spell in general. And Gandalf later says that Saruman cannot try to be both counselor and then also like warmonger at the same time. He can't make that balance in the voice. So by splitting his attention, he basically defeated himself.
Gotcha. Okay.
And Gandalf doesn't break his staff until after that defeat basically happened and proved it.
Right. Well, probably, but I mean, I'm reaching here a little bit. Actually, I should clarify, but it's almost like it's like a symbol of his confidence, right? And you see a little bit of that even in the Dresden Files, right? Like Saruman no longer believes he can do it, therefore he is now powerless. And Gandalf breaks his staff, but it's basically like, Gandalf probably doesn't even break his staff. It's just literally like because of that lack of confidence. It's like all he says is, Saruman, your staff is broken, and then it breaks, And so you're thinking like, hey, it's an outside force, but if you instead see it as like a symbol of his confidence is broken, that's kind of an interesting take. But yeah,
I see it more as the outside force because of the that's how Gandalf comes back to life, is through the outside force, and he takes the place of Saruman. I think it fits a lot better that way.
Sure.
I don't know.
Yeah. So we're glossing over a lot of stuff because we skipped over, them going to Edoras, and like obviously we're talking about it a little bit, right? After Theoden gets the spell broken, he's like, yeah, we're all gonna go that way, and we're gonna like reunite the kingdom, and wind up going to Helm's Deep and shit like that. And then you got the Ents, and there's just so much because it's like
there's a lot.
The book. That's like the book. So
it's a whole side story about Ent wives.
Right. Yeah. Well, yeah, because basically the three, Aragorn and friends, basically they get up to the forest, and then that's when they meet up with Gandalf and figure out, oh shit, Gandalf's alive. We all know this from the movie and stuff. And so then it's like, oh yeah, there were 2 hobbits, but they got picked up by something. Don't worry about it. And it's like, don't worry about it because he knows Treebeard, and Treebeard's got them. And so, they're going to be fine, and they're going to go have their own adventure. And so you get, the split continues. And so you get Gandalf takes the 3 to go deal with Grima and the Rohirrim. And then you get Merry and Pippin and Treebeard being hasty and driving the Ents to war in a mere 3 days, or whatever it winds up being. So,
which is very fast by Lord of the Rings standards, not to even talk about end timelines.
But just in years
scope of what happens
the Ring
in
of Power. Right.
When I got to that, I thought he did it. He did it. He's pranking us. This is a joke. It's wonderful. I just thought it was great.
That was a change in a way from I feel like the movie kind of executed it better in a dramatic way of the fact that there was the Entmoot. They decided this isn't for us, and therefore it's the all is lost moment of, and then Merry and Pippin says the thing, take us to Isengard, because the further we are from danger, the farther, or the closer we are to danger, the farther we are from harm. And it's like, well, that doesn't make sense to me, but okay.
You are very small, so I mean, I guess.
Yeah.
And as a 6'4" person, it's very important to have that whole line. Sorry. So
the moment then when Treebeard sees that all of that forest has been cut down and a wizard should know better, and then the rage happens, and then the Ents are going to war. That's such a great dramatic moment that I love it. And so the fact that the Entmoot in 3 days, they just said, yeah, we're going to war. Off we go.
Right.
It's not what I expected.
It is a lot more dramatic, but again, like the movie still brings like a lot of that in, because Treebeard still says the line, but in like different scenes and that sort of thing, about like wizards should know better, and Saruman was a friend, and Isengard used to be this beautiful place and stuff like that, and then when the Ents do attack, and you get the whole like under new management things and like all of that stuff. And so like I liked it because you can pick out all of those pieces are still there. They just were rearranged for the movie. Like even Quickbeam, I think, is the one that gets set on fire and stuff like that. And so like you even get the whole, like it was touch and go there for a little bit, and one of them got set on fire, but he's fine, so
the moment when the Ent with his head on fire runs to the water and sticks it in, favorite tiny little moment of the movie.
Right. Well, it's again such a great detail, right? Like the orcs are putting up a somewhat credible defense. They're just completely outmatched, especially by them redirecting a river, because how do you deal with something, that can use the forces of nature against you like that? They're like, this river is really nice here, but if it was over there, it would be so much better right now, so.
The voice actor who also plays Gimli, right, as well, for the Treebeard. That delivery with the wizard should know better, like the way he delivers that line.
His whole performance as Treebeard is really memorable and a lot of fun.
Yeah, it's amazing that they got him stretched out and all the makeup and everything for that, especially because he was a dwarf. But so
yeah, so lots of size, compaction, elongation all at once.
Right. Look, man, when you got wizards on staff, the transmutation's not that hard. So
staff.
I didn't that was worse than my jokes. I didn't even pick up on that one.
Yeah. Oh man. Okay, so anyway. Yeah.
I was very happily surprised that the killing contest between Gimli and Legolas was true to the books, and I was a bit worried that it was only made for the movies for people like me who like that dumb shit in action movies. So I was happy to see that it was real.
They did still kind of make it an action movie version of it, right?
Sure. Yeah.
Yeah. So,
but at the end, he's all like, "I got 42 kills. What did you get?" So. Yeah.
Their friendship is great. The competition is great, and just Gimli in general is beloved to me.
It's Don't Tell the Dwarf. Is that in the book?
Don't tell the elf. No,
oh.
It was not. The whole little moment was just an action movie minute, but
that's right.
It was very good. I loved it.
Well, yeah, and it's funny too because like Gimli's almost like the hobbits are my spirit animal at a couple of points too because he's always thinking about food and like you guys know we've been running for 3 days, right? I'm hungry. Let's eat this. And so, but yeah, all of that's in the book. Like he's got some humor, but he's still kind of like he's almost more like the straight guy out of the comedy duo. Still, like it's like yes, what he's saying is funny, but it's also true. He's just like over there, Mount Doom's exploding. We're worried about if the ring and the doom of the world. And Gimli's like, what's for lunch? Like
even just small moments that they bring that through in the movie of like when they're at Rohan and they're talking about whether to go to war or something, and Gimli's just eating and he's burping beer down his beard, and then he like uses his beard to pat his mouth. It's just like,
yeah, it's fantastic. Yeah.
Battle of Helm's Deep was much shorter than the movie.
I was like, I was like, man, I should go like reread that or something because I felt like I zoned out for like the entire battle. And like, I remember listening to like the explosion and them freaking out that it's like, Saruman's got gunpowder. Oh God. And then it was just like, and then all the orcs died. And I'm like, like this was fast, so.
Yeah.
Or hear him. And then they ride in.
I think that's the chapter for me that I just completely like it didn't make sense in my head at all either because I've seen Two Towers the movie so many times. It's so changed.
Right.
Yeah.
For the better, the movie?
I think I like seeing. That's actually the Helm's Deep is one I'll say I like seeing the action a lot. I did like that a lot. So that's probably the best thing they have. But I do think some other elements of it don't work as well, and I don't think the line because I got my axe in his nervous system really kills as much as I think people think it does.
What do you mean?
It wouldn't work in the book. It wouldn't work in the book.
It slays. He killed it. The axis in the nervous system.
Yeah. Yeah, I mean, like it opens up questions of like why Gimli knows what a nervous system is for starters, or something like that. But
I'm just gonna ignore that and
like,
right.
Right, but it is hilarious. So yes, I wouldn't transpose it into the book or anything like that, but it's still not a bad line, But yeah, I mean, the Battle of Helm's Deep is like it really should have been a kind of highlight. You just get this thing where Tolkien very much doesn't focus on the action when he's writing it, where it's like, it really kind of is meant to be the culmination, like the way they sell it in the movie is, the age of men is over, right? Like, I mean, I think that's even more like the Minas Tirith, battle, but, like 10,000 orcs or whatever marched on fucking Helm's Deep. And it's almost like we're in the book, we're getting it more from Gandalf's perspective, where like Gandalf's not worried about it because he's already got, counter motions in play, but you're watching it unfold in the movie from Aragorn and Theoden's perspective. And so you get the much more dramatic, like, hey, Aragorn, I'm telling you in Elvish so that I'm not, a dipshit like you're about to be, but your people are not going to make it, right? Because there's 10,000 orcs on the way, they're all going to die. Then I'll die as one of them. And it's like, whoa, bro, we were talking in Elvish for a reason. Like, come on, and so it's a lot more dramatic and like fatalistic in the movie. Whereas like in the book, I just feel like it's like a chess match and like Gandalf's like not even worried about it a little bit.
Well, Gandalf's not worried because he has the ability to a Deus Ex Machina in a sense of like, I am here to save the day all the way at the end.
Right.
Because it's like, what we're really seeing with Helm's Deep in most of book 3 is Aragorn's perspective. And this his character early on in this book admits that he has to be king, he has to go to Gondor and all these things, he has to go protect all of men. But in the movie, they draw that out as an evolution, and part of it's like he's going to die as one of them. Is he's deciding that he's just going to stake his claim here, and this is part of his duty, and he's coming to realize it, which I think is a correct choice to make his growth more kind of elongated that way and showing it more rather than he came to the decision and now it's done.
And you still do see that in Two Towers and stuff like that, in my opinion. Like, he doesn't agonize over it with Legolas and whoever else is at hand like he does in the books, right? Where in the books he's just like, yes, I will, go to Gondor. I am to be king. You don't get that moment until much later in the movies, but they show you that he's taking responsibility because he basically has that moment in Helm's Deep. He has the moment with Theoden later where they're gathering the Rohirrim to go to Gondor, where he basically becomes like his adjutant and like his main lieutenant, even though Éomer is still around and all of these other Rohirrim that are his countrymen. But it's like, yeah, these aren't my guys, but at the same time they're kind of my guys. So Aragorn's trying to like have his finger on the wheel even still. And so like in the movies you get to see him take responsibility rather than in the books they tell you that it's like because like even with the Palantir, like because I had just read that scene, like the whole like when have you ever known me to make like rash and unsafe decisions? I'll take the Palantir. It's like it's just another way of them showing Aragorn taking responsibility and the fact that he's starting to think, not only am I doing this, but we might win, and I'll have this for later. Like that.
Also,
that's what that looks like
that
to me.
stone came from Gondor, and so it's Gondor's property. So
sure, but yeah, but he's taking ownership is just the whole underlying thing. So
so basic book and movie show it differently as appropriate to their medium, I would say.
Right. Yeah, well, yeah, I feel like movie was definitely more show, book is more tell. Aragorn is telling you he's ready. In the movie they're showing you his heroics and how he's being a leader more, so.
So Éomer, great character in general, I'd say, but the fact that he was the one that Gandalf was going to go find in the movies makes a lot of sense versus this person, Erkenbrand, that I've never heard of before and I don't really care about.
And I feel like he was on screen for like a few minutes, right? Because it's like, I mean, in the movie, they very much combined the two characters, right? And like I've known that, since they came out and whatever. But it's like Erkenbrand the Red or something like that, or am I making that up? But it's like this dude in like red armor just shows up in the middle of Helm's Deep and starts like killing orcs and shit. And we're like, oh shit, it's Erkenbrand, he's back,
We kind of lost him, and we don't know where he is. But the whole Rohan conflict and story, they just cleaned it up a little bit for the movie, and I think it makes a lot of sense. The fact that what Grima Wormtongue was doing, why Éomer was having so many problems with him, the fact that like they didn't explicitly mention both book and movie that Wormtongue was going after Éowyn, Éomer wanted to obviously stop that. Basically, same exact words were happened, but the fact that Éomer and his loyal riders were exiled, and now we can't find them when we need them because now we've gotten rid of Wormtongue. It's a perfect little conflict. And so Gandalf saying, look on the fifth day, look to me at the east. It's like we easily forget about that little prophecy until there's everyone that we needed right then.
Wait a minute, is it what day is it? No, where's east? Yeah, but like you said in the book, it's a little messier and almost more realistic because Erkenbrand, for example, he's also not necessarily riding with a singular host either. His forces are scattered is part of it, which is why it takes so long and that sort of thing. And so they talk about it in a scene that it's like, oh yeah, Gandalf, we saw him yesterday going that way. Well, we just saw him going this way today or whatever. And so he's literally riding the length and breadth of Rohan to gather these forces. It isn't like he just went to the valley where Erkenbrand and his forces are, bivouacked and that sort of thing and just hanging out. He had to go like find all of these little disparate squads because they're still defending the kingdom, because you have, the Southmen or whatever, the men that have thrown in with Saruman, plus orcs, plus whatever, like the country is being torn apart, except for you just happen to have exiled a huge chunk of their standing army, which are still doing their job. Because it's like, they're so loyal to their king and country that even though he's cast them out, they're still trying to defend their people, which, it's not, I mean, like all the pieces are there, but, it's just such an epic thing to put together that it's like, yeah, this is what Gandalf's doing. He's literally riding, 5 days straight so that he can save these guys. And he could only do this because he's got Shadowfax, which is the fastest supernatural horse ever. And, doesn't need a rest apparently, or if it does, it takes very little rest. So, and then he shows up, does his little dance at the end and be like, 10,000 orcs. We weren't even worried, were we, guys? So.
Urukais, isn't it? Or is that not
Urukai?
It's the same high orc, so you can still call them orcs, but yeah.
They have mention in the book of the Warg Riders, but we didn't get to see them, which is another moment I think the movie had fun with, of just making the fact that as people were traveling to Helm's Deep, they got attacked by the Warg Riders. And then we have that dramatic moment of Aragorn fell off the side of the cliff and he's dead and gone. And oh no, we're so worried. And then he bonds with a horse, which is really important to people of Rohan. It's like he has the horse's approval. He has our approval.
Right. Well, it's like dogs, right? You know good people when the dogs like them. So.
And it was, I know that there's a lot of discussion about that, how Arwen and Éowyn have been treated differently. And so they are showing in the book that Éowyn is definitely enamored with Aragorn, but he's also paying attention to her and this buildup of something between them, versus Arwen hasn't said a single word in the books, ever. She was there for a moment. She said nothing. But Éowyn is getting built up as this really interesting person, but she still didn't even get to Helm's Deep. She was at Edoras protecting the capital as a woman of this lineage that they value so much, that Hama had said that, like, no, we're not going to give this honor to anyone other than this family. If Éomer and Theoden have to leave, then give it to her. That's how important that she is and how much honor she has. I don't know, how much of a deviation is it from her from book to movie? I haven't seen all of it yet, because she was trying to actually go to war in Helm's Deep in the movie.
Right. I mean, to me, that's more egregious than, turning a war story into an action movie, because that's you get those complaints every now and again, right, Tom? Where it's like, oh, they put too much action in the action movie. It's like, bro, it's literally they're sieging a castle. I don't know how you take the action out of that, whereas like I feel like they fluff up the presence of the girls a lot more, in like, the accusation at the time, anyways, from what I remember, was that they were doing it to put sexy in Lord of the Rings, right? Because it was like they took Arwen and merged her with I can't remember the elf name, which is which is such a slander on his character and everything like that. But, by today's standards, you'd be accused of being woke. So there is just no winning. It's been 20 years and we're still mad about it. We've just moved the goalpost or whatever. But, but if you want to be a book purist, then they have very little to do with, the action on screen, so to speak. Like, not the fact that she is basically regent in Theoden's place is a slouch of a job. She's just not on screen, more or less. But until the end, right? Because she's still very much, at the battle of, in the final battle anyway. But yeah, so if I remember right, I don't think that's a different character. I think that's still Arwen.
King dude, right? I mean,
right?
Or did the movie make that up? I would hope not. So
no,
she has to go to battle at some point.
Yeah, that right, exactly. And that's what I was thinking, is because that is one of those scenes that's basically lifted right from the pages, from what I remember. So, but yeah, I think for me, like, remembering back, like with Arwen and that sort of thing, it was kind of it was such a pivot, because obviously, like, they stole like bits of the character and story from other elves and gave it to her, but like there's also like all of this romance kind of like peppered in, and I don't remember that being in the books at all.
It's not, like, unless it's not so far, and so right. It's just kind of like a a bait and switch.
Like, where was that pulled from? Yeah,
right. But like, so there's the only hint of romance is Aragorn and Éowyn, or like Sam and the girl at the bar in the Shire, Rose. It's like that's it so far. So
right.
building this up without, like, the movie does it well, I think, of like, you can see how Eowyn is enamored of him, but you can see him thinking of Arwen all the time. Like,
right.
You see that it is not going to work out for Eowyn's favor because he is still in love with Arwen, even though he thinks that she's gone.
Right.
It's not as much of a bait and switch.
You even get the stuff from Theoden in the movie, right? Where, Theoden's like, hey, that's great. You're both humans. What a fantastic pairing and whatever. And Aragorn's like, yeah, except, I'm basically totally already shacked up with this chick back home, type of thing. And, so like you get like the full thing. Like it's not just Eowyn that's like, pining for something she can't have, because Aragorn never says, oh, by the way, literally, I'm carrying around someone's immortality on a trinket here. Like, I am literally betrothed basically to an elf, and then they're like, it makes sense. You even ate the stew. Where we come from, you're basically married now, so. But.
This too. I haven't seen that mentioned in the books ever, but it's a great little moment of like when I was a kid watching these movies the first time, as a father of a friend, he had read all the books and he knew everything. So every time we had a question, we would just ask him, and he's like, hold on. This guy is like 80 something years old. He's lived in basically dirt and terror for his whole life. And it's that bad for him to have a hesitation, and he's still trying to eat it to be nice. Like, imagine how bad this actually is.
Yeah. How bad did you screw up potatoes and meat that, that a guy,
I guess it was just boiled with no flavorings, no salt, no anything. And then just like, kind of like,
I mean, that's just par for the course. That's field rations, man. Aragorn feeds it to it. So imagine the scene that got cut. Aragorn feeds it to a dog or a horse or whatever. He gets the fucking lembas bread. That's how bad it was. He'd rather just literally eat, like flaky bread that he's had for the last, 3 weeks than, no.
I mean, Gimli isn't eating it.
Right.
And Gimli's very food focused.
What about second breakfast, Gimli?
Yeah. Telling you, man, the hobbits are his spirit animal. So if they
the
just
hobbits
did a little bit more digging,
if Gimli had been there, he would have been the one asking.
Right.
For sure.
This is all the fun stuff in book 3. So I think book 4 is going to be a lot more travel and boring, and I don't know. Frodo and Sam, and I mean, I guess Gollum makes it more. There was more of a story, even just about Smeagol in the movie, but like Frodo was kind of the non-entity of the Two Tower movie.
The Frodo Sam part really is just like, even in the movie, it's kind of like whatever, like. But it gives a nice, like, I guess it's an ambiance is the word I'm looking for. There's like, we get to see some really cool visuals on their travel. I feel like through the swamp and such, and I really love when they see when they get to, like, even though it's so close to Mordor, it's almost like nice oasis, and the Oliphaents coming through and everything. Like, that's really nice.
Oh yeah, that's true, because they also have their little side quest, detour with Faramir. So if that happens in book 4, that'll be
interesting. That'll be exciting. Faramir's fun.
Yeah, well, and he's good, because if what I remember in the books, like I don't remember if he does get tempted or not, but if he does, he's one of the ones that like legitimately refused the ring as well. And so, it's another one of those where it was like the movies kind of like didn't fully sell his character, but the extended edition helped quite a bit, I think. But like Faramir is like a good guy, right? And like legitimately, and he does wax poetic and agonize over some of the events and stuff like that going on and stuff. So,
it's hard to choose favorites, I think, in the Lord of the Rings movies, but he was always up there for me. It's like, he was a good guy. He was getting all of the negative shit on him all the time, from like the fact that they're constantly at war against orcs and they're basically slowly losing it, and all of that war of attrition. Mm-hmm. And then his father's such a dick to him and everything. And he's just a good guy.
Right. Well, and I remember being excited for it in the books now that I'm thinking about it more too, because it's like Strider is this total badass ranger, right? And so you're thinking like, is it because Strider Aragorn is cool, or is it because Rangers are cool? And so for me, I was like, man, I can't wait to see more Rangers. And then you go out in the middle of nowhere, and holy shit, there's a whole squad of Rangers here, you know. So I definitely remember being excited, being able to see more of that, you know, and that sort of thing when I read them as a teen. But yeah, so that might be a little bit of light for book 4.
Cool.
Other than that, it just kind of feeds into the fact that, like, hey, guess what? You know, Lord of the Rings is just kind of like a story. And yeah, a lot of it is just like real world stuff, right? You know, it really isn't an action movie. So when it's slower, that's not necessarily like, it's only a problem for your attention span, is all I'm saying, you know? So
yeah, I mean, it's funny. You see it in all sorts of stories of whatever setting, whatever grand magics and high fantasy or crazy sci-fi or something. The core of the story is the dude having an issue with his father. And that's so common. It's small family problems set into crazy settings.
Is there anyone more unlikable in, like, so like him or Dolores Umbridge from that era? It's just like, who else can you hate as much as those two? Like, he's so he's really like just easy to hate, the dad, and in the movie at least.
Very exciting. I don't know. I love all those.
I missed it.
Denethor. He's talking about Denethor.
Oh, sure. Yeah.
I saw a post on Twitter, I think it was the other day, like, what is the most, like, it's like, link your most sexy non-sex scene from any movie ever. It's like, nobody can top this. And it was Denethor biting into the juicy tomato.
Right. Yeah. I mean, the actor is just so fantastic, you know, overall. Like, he just sells the entire thing, you know, so like, that's a big part of it. And then, I mean, you get some great acting from, I can never remember. It's Pippin, I think, right? Is the one that goes to Gondor, right? So, so, you know, you just get all the cringes and, you know, his song, you know, where it does fit and that sort of thing. And, you know, especially overlaid with, you know, the fall of Osgiliath again, you know, this week. So, but
I think, like, for me, the actor, he stands out as Walter from Fringe. That's like, even though I saw him in Lord of the Rings first, but he's just so iconic.
He's very good at being an unhinged person.
Yeah, he's a great actor.
How many tomatoes does he eat in Fringe, though? I'm just saying. So.
I don't know. He might have made a cow into a tomato or something.
He goes crazy about various kinds of candy, or root beer floats and things like that. He doesn't eat tomatoes or vegetables in Fringe.
Root beer floats sounds like my kind of guy. So
I never saw the appeal, but I like a vanilla Coke.
Well, yeah, but you're European, so like it tastes like medicine to you, right? So
yeah.
Like, it's tough to say. It's like somebody over here being like, oh, I don't really like grape. But it was like, yeah, but was your cough syrup grape? Like, it kind of makes sense. That's not a criticism of the flavor. You just have a negative association with it, you know? So
cherry flavor and NyQuil, like NyQuil ruined.
Yeah, I don't like cherry flavor.
And it's insidious, just like the Federation. So, you know.
To me, it's because cherry flavor reminds me, like, Dr. Pepper. When I tried it, I was like, this tastes like marzipan, and I don't like it.
Right.
Lord of the Rings, anyone?
Yeah. I mean,
so 2 weeks we're watching the movie, which I've been like, every time we delay to talk about the books hurts me in the sense that we got to delay when I can watch the movie. So, you know, at least we'll do that. We'll get to see them screw up the elves again, you know. So, but
the elves weren't mentioned in Helm's Deep. There were no elves
because they're not fucking there. There's no reason for them to be there. Like, if there's an egregious part to them adding in the action and that sort of thing, like, it would have been great to have a detachment of elves there, but they don't go to Helm's Deep. And so you put them in there, which is fine because I want to see more elves. But then you just don't even do it right. We got to get that rant in there because, that rant is 20 years old, and I'm still mad about it. So.
I actually have a correction for you around the elves from my friend who's very into Lord of the Rings. He was like, "Wait, he said that?" No, and then he went and looked it up and turned out he was correct. Because I believe that was you, Justin, who said you had a problem originally when you watched the movie because the elves, all their weapons and armor did not shine like Sting does, and all elven armor is supposed to do that.
Right.
That is not true. It's only special elven stuff that does that, not all.
I have a distinct memory from The Hobbit in the Battle of the Five Armies where, the elven army was on fire. So unless we're saying all of those guys were legendary.
At least he corrected it. My Lord of the Rings friend corrected it. And went to look it up. And at least on the wiki, the big one, it's specifically said like that. You can go check it out if you want. It's just...
Yeah, so you and I have had this discussion before. I don't give a shit what the wiki says, just like we don't give a shit when we go to the Dresden Files wiki and whatever they say, right? Like it's a useful crutch, but it's not a definitive source. My friend, if I'm going to go do it, I'm going to go find the paragraphs or the chapter from The Hobbit because that's what informs it. I mean, the fucking elven rope glows, for God's sake. So, I don't know, I'm pretty sure that the rope they tie Gollum up with is glowing. So, if we want to say it's Galadriel's special rope, or something. But
Galadriel is special, and Gimli will make sure you remember that.
Also,
for the record, I agree with Cody because when Haldir dies, that was such a significant moment of elves don't die. Right. This is bad.
Right. No, it's especially because when you actually think about it with Haldir is multiple thousands of years old and just got cut down in 3 seconds, Yeah. And fucker only brought 12 arrows to the battle though, so whose fault is that, So
it's not a hill I'm willing to die on. It was just a correction he had, so I'm just gonna
I'll dig into it for you, Andreas. So, we'll go to the source. You know what? I've got it downstairs because I don't think I have it here, but I'll go find it. So
when we discuss the movie next time, we can have a follow-up on it or something else.
Yeah, I'm okay being wrong. It's just a very old memory, but I'm certainly not going to take the Wikipedia's word for it. So, but yeah. What was the other thing? So Haldir was there. There was something else that was anyway.
Well,
I don't know. There was.
We'll find it when we watch the movie again. Not that we haven't been talking about it incessantly when talking about the book, because of course that's what we're going to do. But
you know what else?
In general, I still find the adaptation, these movies with these books, is one of the best adaptations I've seen. Staying true to the feel of the story, even when it needs changing some of the details. But there's a lot of other details that they kept really right. Like the names of the horses that Éomer lent to Aragorn, Legolas, and Gimli were correct.
Right.
You know
the
what
dialogue is
details
listed. They're important.
You know what
people
other
care about their horses? They name their horses. They respect their horses. Most of their names are about horses.
You know what other details are important?
Blue fire. But go ahead.
It's oh fuck! I lost the thread. Shit. I was gonna say. You know what other details are important? The details you put in on our Patreon. Your credit card details. That's where I was going with it.
What a great segue.
Yeah, it would have been great. It would have been great, but I lost the thread.
That's about fair for us. And all those details, you've given me money. Let me give you a Discord link. Follow the link.
Give us money. You get a Discord link. You have to use the Discord link, otherwise Director Alex gets upset.
It's just
and she takes it out on us
with multiple people. And it's just okay, I can mess up once. I don't think I'm messing up 6 times. Come on, people.
let's get to the crux of it. The director needs more friends. She needs a bigger audience to share her gifts with. Okay, guys. So she's got a vested interest in this. We just want your money. Like, you can come hang out. That's literally the price of admission, right? You can come hang out, but we just want the money. So
yeah, that's us.
She wants the friends.
She wants more people there so she can get them to read Gideon the Ninth, ultimately. And she needs you to join the Discord to do that. And I said, she takes it out on us when you don't. Like, then we get punished.
Well, right now everything's
show them the bruises, Andreas.
The GIF war yesterday went to Lord of the Rings like 3 different times.
Oh, are you kidding me? There were so many that I was like, oh, I'm so excited right now. Like when you did the like fairy death and I answered with Theoden or whatever, I was like, or whatever the timing was. But like, that's one of my favorite scenes in Lord of the Rings. Like, hell yeah, I'm going to use that GIF. The stew was pretty spot on too, because we even brought that up today, so.
It's all very topical. Look at us. We're like content creators. Here we go.
Professional content creators right here. That's us.
Yeah. If we were a professional, when she said, here we go, she would have cut the feed right then. That was the moment. So,
Oh, now it's a full hour. Do we have any more things to plug? There's a moment. Now that thinking about Dresden, with book 3, thinking of Dresden, like the whole Stars and Stones thing, he's just completely lifted that, hasn't he?
Yeah, have you read the Dresden Files? Like,
but like the whole discussion about the Palantir and how they were stars and stones, and now they're these things that are super powerful, and obviously the White Council. But it just...
How about the line, like, no matter how subtle the wizard, like, or fuck subtle, like when he kicks in the door, like,
obviously. He did that.
That's just
references to Stephen Bruce, so that's fine. Like, references are one thing, but he has lifted the Stars and Stones as a core world building.
We actually still don't know what it's gonna exactly mean, but we'll find out.
It means it's gonna rain Palantirs, apparently, so...
Jim's sitting right now watching this episode. It's like, man, I gotta rewrite this shit.
Yeah, right.
Every time somebody decides to rewrite something because somebody guessed it correctly, it gets worse. So stop that.
Yeah,
I don't think he would. I think
somebody leaked his outline. We're just reading it right here. So, and then the Palantirs descended from the heavens.